from all over the country. By driving along the highway, you can reach New York and enter the city. But we can't say that New York itself is produced by traveling along the highway. Rather, the highway gives us entrance to New York. By traveling on the highway, we can enter New York. Similarly, the path leads to Nibbana. By following the path, you reach enlightenment, and that brings the realization of Nibbana. But Nibbana itself is not created by the path. Now we can consider some of the terms and expressions used in the text as designations for Nibbana. We can try to treat these a little systematically. First of all, as a precaution, we have to repeat what we already said, that the nature of Nibbana cannot be understood through words or expressions, not even through a very thorough study of the text. This can only give us knowledge, book knowledge, but not the real understanding of Nibbana. To truly understand Nibbana, we have to understand it through actual experience, through realization. Words themselves can never adequately indicate the nature of Nibbana. However, in order to communicate some idea of the goal to which his teaching points, the Buddha had to resort to words and expression, the conventional means of communication. And when he speaks of Nibbana, he uses two types of expressions. On the one hand, negative expressions, on the other, positive expressions. And to get an adequate idea of Nibbana, both types of expressions have to be considered in balance. The Buddha uses each type with a special purpose in mind. And if we don't take both types into account, we will come away with a one-sided picture of Nibbana. Sometimes the Buddha uses negative expressions. The Buddha's purpose here is to emphasize the supramundane nature of Nibbana, its transcendental nature. From one angle, Nibbana is something which is completely above and beyond all the limited forms of the world. It can only be described by negations of the conditions of the world. Thus we find such expressions for Nibbana as we've dealt with already: the unconditioned, the unoriginated, the unborn, the imperishable, the unchanging, the unsupported, and so on. These terms all convey their meaning by a process of exclusion. That is, they negate some perceptible feature of conditioned phenomena in order to show that Nibbana is something entirely different and distinct from all conditioned states. But we shouldn't make the mistake, some scholars make, of seizing upon these negative terms and then taking Nibbana to be a state of annihilation or complete non-existence. To illustrate this error, the Buddhists speak of a certain parable or story of the turtle and the fish. According to the story, there was once a turtle who lived in a lake with a group of fish. And one day the turtle went for a walk on dry land, and he was away from the lake for a few weeks. And when he returned, he met some of the fish, and the fish asked him, "Oh, Mr. Turtle, hello, how are you? We haven't seen you for a few weeks. Where have you been all this time?" The turtle said, "Oh, I was spending some time on dry land." Fish were a little puzzled, and they said, "Taking a walk on dry land? What are you talking about? What is this dry land?" The turtle tried to think of some expressions, how to explain. He was left speechless. Then the fish started asking questions. They said, "Well, this dry land of yours, is it wet?" The turtle said, "No, it's not wet." "Well, is it cool and refreshing?" "No, it's not cool and refreshing." "Does it have waves and ripples?" "No, it doesn't have waves and ripples." "Can you swim in it?" "No, you can't swim in it." So the fish said, "Well, it's not wet, it's not cool, It has no waves, you can't swim in it. So this dry land of yours must be complete non-existence. Just an imaginary thing, nothing real at all. The turtle said, well, maybe so, and he left the fish and went for another walk on dry land. And so, to sum up, one method for making known the nature of Nibbana by means of negative expressions is to eliminate all the attributes of mundane conditioned phenomena, to show that they are all incommensurate with the nature of Nibbana, to show that Nibbana utterly transcends all the attributes of mundane things. Another purpose behind the use of negative expressions is to show the desirability of reaching Nibbana, to indicate the benefits of attaining Nibbana. To this end, the Buddha uses a different set of negative expressions. Whereas the first set is rather abstract and metaphysical, this set is very concrete and experiential. Here the Buddha speaks of Nibbana primarily in terms negating suffering. He holds up Nibbana as the cessation of suffering, dukkha nirodha. Thus it becomes the ideal goal, the aim of all striving, since all beings desire to be free from suffering, to be secure and free from sorrow. Then the Buddha uses terms which negate particular forms of suffering. He calls it the cessation of old age and death, the unafflicted, the unoppressed, the sorrowless state, asoka pada, the fearless state, abhaya, the deathless state, amata. By using these terms, like the cessation of suffering, the Buddha awakens in us the aspiration to attain Nibbana. Then once he's awakened this aspiration, the next step is to point out what has to be done to reach the goal, to show the work that we have to do to arrive at the end of suffering. And to make this plain, the Buddha describes Nibbana by terms negating the defilements, negating the mental factors that keep